Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Hey Averys, and we're back again. This is my wife Sandy. I'm her husband Steve. Lucky guy. Hey, we were just thinking about all of us have stories in our life. A lot of them are really, really tough stories. But some of them tough stories turn into amazing testimonies.
Yeah.
And so today we just wanted to share one of those where actually we had a 2-year-old daughter who basically cut part of her finger off, and I'm going to have Sandy tell that story, how God amazingly healed her and just rescued us in a foreign country too, by the way. Singapore.
So at the time we were living in Singapore. We were there attending a ministry program, and Steve was working for Citigroup. So we lived in a little flat, and we were on the first floor. So right outside of our back patio door was a small little patio, and then a
and
little
two
gate.
kids at the time, right? Two kids. 4-year-old, 2-year-old.
A little gate that, walked around some shrubbery and then went to the pool area. They had a playground and stuff. So one day I was taking the girls out to the playground, and I really didn't want to go because it was really hot, but I thought, it probably is good for them just to get out of the house.
I was working. This is in Singapore. It's like humid, 90 degrees.
During the day, yeah. So I'm leaving outside the patio, we get to the patio, and we're walking off. And Sophia at the time was 4, right around 4, and she toddled ahead, and Olivia was just almost 2, and she was lagging behind, and so I'm kind of in between them, and I didn't want Sophia to go too far ahead because I didn't want her to fall in the pool, and I'm not there to catch her, and come on, Liv, let's go. And so she turned back and she rested her hand on this post, and she closed this little gate that we had on our patio. Well, when she did, she clipped the tip of her finger in the gate, and immediately blood was everywhere. So I panic, I rush back, I scoop her up, and I saw the fingertip dangling from the end of her finger.
I was at work. I wasn't even there. I didn't even get a phone call. Nothing.
She was hysterical, and she was trying to pull it like this to get it off because it was dangling the tip. Yep. It was awful.
And we had no car there. We actually, everything we did was public transportation, right?
Right. So I scooped up the finger like this, and I screamed for this young girl that was living with us, "Get me a towel." So she gets me this white kitchen towel, and I, just tried to compress it. I literally slipped on my flip-flops with her in my arm. I got my purse, and I ran out the door. And so I had to walk the distance of a football field to get to this gate to get out. I had to fumble around, find a security thing to get through the gate, right? So now I'm outside the gate, and I'm waiting to try to flag down a taxi. Anyway, finally a taxi stops, and we get in. Now, in Singapore, at that time at least, you couldn't just go straight to the emergency room or the hospital. You had to have this slip or some kind of form of paper from your local clinic to say yeah, this is actually an issue that you have to go to the hospital.
So it's not like you can just go into an emergency room. Here you are with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old by your side without your husband because he's working, and it wasn't any time to really communicate, and you're trying to hold a finger together, and you're trying to get a ride to the hospital. It's just not like the basic comforts and conveniences we have here in the U.S. in terms of our healthcare system.
So I go into this clinic. He takes me to a clinic. You get out and you have to walk again. It's another length of a football field. This is not convenient in any way. So I get in there, I'm waiting, I get checked in, and I'm panicking a little in my mind, do they know what to do? Because, you're in a foreign country, you don't know. This is my baby. And I happen to look down on the floor, and on the floor, I'm not kidding, at the checkout desk, there is a cockroach on the floor at least this big around. It was the biggest cockroach I ever saw, and it was paws up. It was dead.
Looking at her.
And I'm did nobody notice? How come they didn't clean that up? It was so gross. So I get in, the doctor finally sees us. We put her hand up on his desk like this, and real slow, like I open it, he took one look at her and he said, close it back up, close it back up. You need to see emergency. Yes, I know. And so he gives me my slip of paper. We go back another 100 yards to try to flag down another taxi. We get a taxi. We take a 30-minute cab ride into the city. And at this point, I'm literally praying so hard. I can't, here we are in ministry school, right? I can't think of a single scripture. I can't think of any like special prayers. I am just praying in the Spirit. And I can't think of anything to say. All I said was,
because we're human.
God, and I was trying to keep my feelings at bay. I had to stay in control. So I said, God, I don't know what's wrong with this little finger, but I know that you know, and I need you to fix it. And so I just sat and prayed in the Spirit the whole ride. And after about 30 seconds to a minute, she just put her little head on my chest and she stopped sobbing and she just was restful. She was quiet. She just breathed normally. Wow. And she just sat there with me. And I'm sure the driver probably thought, who is this crazy American woman praying in the back seat? I didn't care. I was like, I need intervention. So I get this this message in my heart sort of rose up, and it was like, it's not as they suppose. And that didn't mean anything to me at the time, but I knew I heard it down deep, and so I just spoke it out. And I said, you're right, Lord. It's not as they suppose. So we get to the emergency room. We go in. They had to sedate her. They actually let me come in the room with her while she was being sedated.
It's a 2-year-old kid.
And she was crying, and it was hard for me to trust them with my baby. And so they came out. They asked me to step out of the room because I was starting to get a little bit like she's across the room. What are you doing to her?
Yeah.
So when the doctor came out, he said, Mrs. Avery, I'm sorry. This is much worse than we expected. He said, we thought maybe just, the nail bed was detached. But in fact, the entire flesh under the nail bed is removed. We feel, her finger is partially amputated. So we're going to do our best to stitch it up, but I can't say for sure if it's ever going to fully recover. There was probably going to be nerve damage. We feel like it'll probably be discolored and she may never grow a fingernail back.
When did you finally call me?
It was after I got that report is when I finally called him at work and told him what was going on and everything. And that news did not rattle me. I'm sure it was the word of the Lord on the way that gave me a grounding. It was a little bit of a firm place to feel my feet. And so I said, okay, thank you. And so he went back and they did their best. They stitched her up. They gave me this intense wrap and sent us home with several little bottles of medication. This one's for fever. This one's for pain. This one's for, antibiotic.
I just think about even before we had kids, she was always preparing. When she would read her Bible, she would sometimes take little index cards and write out certain scripture. And she might have the scripture on one side, maybe an answer to a prayer on the other side, or whatever she did. But she was continually doing that, and then it kind of rubbed off on me. I was a little bit of a project, but here I am. And but I think about all those hours of time that you spent doing that. All of a sudden, this moment of crisis came, and you didn't need a cue card.
Right.
Because these things began to rise up in her, and it was a standard that made her calm and actually transferred to Olivia when she put her head on her chest. I mean, I think about that's supernatural working right there.
Yeah. So they said to me, don't get it wet. Don't get the finger wet. Go home and, we're going to set up an appointment for you in 7 days. We want you to go see a hand specialist. And I was like, got it. So we go home. In the meantime, we're potty training this girl. And
I remember that.
It's maybe 2 days later, right? And she's acting normal now. She's got this big contraption all wrapped up, but she's managing it. She's doing well. So one day she's, sitting on the potty and she goes, look, Mom. And she sticks her finger right in the potty. I am freaking out. I'm not supposed to get it wet with water, let alone urine.
I'm at work.
No, you weren't at work. This
Oh,
must have been a
oh.
weekend. Yeah, because
Why?
I sent him to the clinic. You took her to the clinic to get it cleaned and rewrapped.
She remembers everything.
I do. So
Okay, I took her to the clinic.
he took her to the clinic. They unwrapped it, cleaned it, rewrapped it. Go home, don't get it wet. So
Good to go.
the 7th day, I take her to this appointment where the doctor spoke very broken English, which makes me uncomfortable. No, you weren't there.
I wasn't there.
He was probably at work this time.
Yeah.
So he opens up the bandages and he says to the nurse, he goes like this to her finger, put a Band-Aid. She's good. And I'm like,
Hallelujah.
excuse me, hang on. Can you look again? And so he says, she closed in gate. I'm like, yes. And he says, she's fine. She's fine. Put the Band-Aid.
Meanwhile, there's a report in writing that says partial amputation.
Yeah, I'm like, no, wait, excuse me. This finger was partially amputated. And he says, no. To amputate means to
In Singapore,
cut off.
they say, no la.
Yeah. And I said, yes, to cut off. The finger was partially cut off.
No la.
And he says, no, it's fine. Go home. Give her a Band-Aid. I'm like, can I get it wet? He says, yeah, it's fine. Go home. It was a complete miracle. You don't go from partially amputated to completely well in 7 days' time.
Wow.
I don't even believe we removed the stitches. The stitches dissolved. I don't think she ever lost her fingernail.
Right.
She didn't. She did not lose her fingernail, even from the trauma of the accident.
Wow.
It looked a little bruised for a while. We put a Band-Aid on it. We went home. She was completely miracled. And so we love to share that story because it's the power of God. It had nothing to do with any special something that we had. It was literally just the power of God.
And he's faithful. He's faithful.
He's so faithful.
Yeah.
So when you face these uncertain times and these like critical moments where you just don't have an answer, all you have to do is just cry out to the Lord.
Amen.
Help! Like
Yeah.
that's all you need.
Maybe write out a few cue cards. You know, Isaiah 26 verse 3 says that God will keep you in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. And you know, there's different places all throughout the Bible. There's really cool promises that, you know, in 1 Kings chapter 1 verse 29-30, it says God will deliver you from. He delivered David from all of his distresses. And so, you know, all throughout Scripture, you can just see.
David had a lot of distresses.
Yep. So he's a great, wonderful Redeemer and Deliverer and great God. So we hope you enjoyed that story. We lived it. We walked through it. And God has certainly brought us through some amazing things. Hey guys, Steve here. And thanks again for tuning into our channel. And please subscribe if you would and hit the like button. Also, if you like the story and you think it would help somebody else, please feel free to share it. That's our #1 mission, is to help build other people's up and encourage people. Also, if you have your own miracle story, please, those are powerful, powerful stories that can help other people, and share it with us, and we'd love to help others and pass your story along too. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day.